Quick video. A while back, I had a German guy by the name of Frederick really talk to me about how he started to help me look into what really transpired with some sort of, I didn't know what order it was. I didn't know if it was an imperial order or rule of our world. I didn't know what was going on particularly at that time. But I knew that the British were always, the British intelligence, their steering of OSS, and this was just, obviously before the creation of CIA and every other international intelligence agency that's modeled after MI6, which is initially and originally a German military intelligence made for military. So originally MI5, and before that just German under the Holy Roman Empire. When I didn't know what was ruling, I didn't know what the system was, but he helped me look into what happened with World War I and World War II behind the scenes, whatever this global rule was, and what it was doing was internationalizing and bringing over many systems, even systems theories, with the distraction of Hitler, with the distraction of the war. There were many things that were being brought over. At the same time, intelligence was creating a debt system in Germany. It was creating, helping move a lot of the other countries into a federal constitutional empire like Italy. So Mussolini, who was an asset, was created, a British asset, was helped move Italy to become a democracy, which is just a socialist constitution, and a part of this federal empire of Britain. And there were so many different aspects to internationalize this empire, now that I can say it's an empire, to internationalize it. And that was almost really that was the whole point of these two wars. But it made me look into the actual systems theories that were being funded by the Pilgrim Society founders. At that point, I was really looking into the Pilgrim Society, how it was really creating the American system of the empire. It was really building it up to become what it is today. Created the banking system over there. Created Council on Foreign Relations with Chatham House, or RIIA, in Britain, to become this foreign policy governance to control the foreign policy of America, with the imperial agenda, and birth certificates, taxes. All of that happened with really Pilgrim Society and the Round Table in the late 1800s, early 1900s. All of that happened then. And the Pilgrim Society in America, what are those families? Oh, Rockefeller and the Scotsman Carnegie. They funded a lot of these works, these theories, these systems theories that would help create this new imperial order in America. And there's a guy called Young, I don't know if it's pronounced right, but Young, I think it's Jancke. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'll spell it. He created all of his systems theory, and there was a testing grounds for trying to establish an order in Germany and trying to establish an order in America of this new what will become an internationalized empire. And that was starting from like 1800s, I think, through to the 1900s. There was an idea, a notion called Middle Europa. I think that was really the origins of the EU. And then you've got the Hague, you've got United Nations, the creation of United Nations, and just how phony and fake that whole creation was under the fake reasoning and justification of peace. Already League of Nations was happening, but with the fake collapse of imperialism, of feudalism, with every monarchy except for the British monarchy, of course, there was I've forgotten what I was going to say, but with that, the imperial conferences, the annual imperial conferences that would happen all around the world with every country, stopped. As I've already shown you, the British Parliament stopped using the words empire, dominions, anything of an imperial nature. They actually removed that wording. Along with the same time the Queen talking about the Commonwealth, establishing the Commonwealth. It was a new soft power rule, a new federal empire. Well, it was already a federal empire prior with George V, but it was becoming more of a the royal family or the monarchy and the empire was it became a system. The ruling became a system rather than a family. Even though the family is still ruling, even though the empire and these houses are still ruling, a system was becoming the sword, along with the foundation and establishment of the Five Eyes intelligence, and the new order, the new way to rule. So they had to, that was all at the same time that all of this was happening. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because I'm going to speak just very quickly if I can. I rarely speak quickly, but I want to explain the whole system of schooling that happened, of the university system with all of this integration of secret societies that happened with this whole plan, this whole covert plan of internationalizing the empire, the reason for World War II. And explain that because I saw a post today by Art is Brutal, and it triggered me into looking into things because there were certain things that connect to our current research and what we're currently looking at. So before I go into that, the first post I saw today, I saw somebody saying basically that Rome ruled, and I am now confident enough to just say, why do you think that is? Because I am now intentionally questioning the narrative that Rome rules, because I don't believe that's the truth. And you know, they show me the pillars, the columns, the Egyptian columns that are in each and every, you know, in Vatican, in City of London, in Washington, etc., etc. But for me, that now ties to the new Rosicrucian Holy Roman Empire rule. That's now happened since America became part of the system, and City of London and the Crown and the British monarchy and British Empire became a part of the system. You know, this is all to do with what happened in the late 15th century with Enlightenment and the Renaissance. So, and how Maximilian I, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, wanted to restructure and recreate the empire, move it from a dual system into a central system with their own faith, to create these secret military orders of the empire, and then to implement them in culture and society, and to create a whole system, an imperial system, rather than these two powerful split systems, to create more of an integrated and universal system. So this person has posted this picture when I've asked these questions, and it was a really, really cool picture, and I really appreciate him posting it because I hadn't seen it before. But it really speaks. I thought, from my understanding, I thought that Freemasonry, up until a certain point, when you get to 33-degree Masonry, you are then shown the true nature of Rosicrucianism. You're then shown the true nature of the order, and that you are a part of the actual imperial military order, rather than just a nice friendly club doing some good Christian deeds, as what probably you understand it from your grandfather's membership, like mine, or that sort of brotherhood, kind of Christian brotherhood and charity and all that stuff. Everything we know about it, that's more of a social kind of communal catch up, if you will. So I thought that it only kind of developed into that, obviously at a later stage, which I'm sure it still does. But a lot of people, as I said, were like, Freemasonry is just a recreation of the Knights Templar, which I have connected in my last video about all of this, have connected it to Maximilian and this whole restructure of divinely ordained monarchy and empire, how he wanted to bring back the Knights Templar and chivalric orders in order to create this sort of military structure and order of the empire, that creates initiation, that creates an integration of society, of this elitist society, of this elitist universal international system that helps support and defend the empire. I got all that, but it just was like hearsay that it was connected to the Knights Templar, connected to knights. And I hadn't really seen the knights and how it connected per se directly to Masonry, Freemasonry. And this picture is really, really interesting because it actually says the Grand Conclave of Masonic Knights Templar in England and Wales. Now you can see here in the image, you can see the kind of the integration of all faiths as the one ancient faith, which is the whole notion of Rosicrucianism. You've got the Star of David. It isn't the Star of David per se. It's I've forgotten. I've actually explained what that star is. It's like it's in, I think, from Asia. It's a very different symbol, but that's a Rosicrucian symbol as well. And then you've got the Freemasonry, the dual system, the yin and the yang, the upper triangle and the lower triangle, created as a different kind of symbol used, and all that stuff. And you've got the knight's head, or the eye in the middle, and you've got the two knights, the two pillars, depending on how you look at it. But it's just a very interesting image, because especially with the actual wording, because it directly relates it back to the Knights Templar. So I'll leave you with that. Now, this is what I was interested in. So art is brutal because it connects me back to what Frederick, that German guy, was introducing me to and talking to me about. You all need to look into divinity schools, and he was talking about Yale. I think Yale with Peter Thiel. I've already spoken to you about entrepreneurship. I've already spoken to you that it was really a military concept. and how if you even look at any accelerator or incubator program of the major universities, even in Australia, in America, I'm sure all over, they now only really accept startups. Then startups are now defined by technology. They're defined by sustainability. They're defined by Agenda 2030 goals. Let's just say that. It's completely imperially political. And a lot of them are funded by, for example, one here university program is funded, I think, by Prince of Wales Foundation or something like that. You've got actual, British monarchy connections and funding or support and a patronised support as well of this sort of these goals and this sort of agenda that's actually infiltrated in the innocent, naive idea or concept that we have of entrepreneurship and innovation. We think it's anything. We think if you're innovative and creative, then you're going to be supported and encouraged. And if you're curious and if you're savvy. But it isn't like that at all. It's if you have a digital idea that's going to help medically or is going to help sustainably or any of those fields that actually help with the imperial agenda, that is only what's admitted and accepted, funded and enabled. You have to be a Zuckerberg, even though Zuckerberg is a complete asset and completely molded and funded, and it's an artificial system that's being created, an artificial imperial system that you're not meant to know about. So I didn't hear the term divinity schools before. Especially, I don't know, all I know about Yale and Oxford and things like that is that obviously that they're, Oxford's a part of the development of the COVID vaccines that were then put through. And Oxford is a part of a lot of the agenda, if not all of the agenda of the empire. And then you've got Yale and you've got MIT in America, and you've got is it Harvard, and I don't know, all those universities. You just think of it as these elitist universities, and then you've never asked yourself, I've never asked myself, why are they elitist? And they're a part of these divinity schools, and I didn't really look into the connection between that and the research that I've been doing of the late 14th century, of the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, but it connects to it. Like when Artis Brutal has posted about this, this thread is all about Peter Thiel and Opus Dei, and some other guy. Look, I don't even know, but I think Peter Thiel is meant to be has meant to be a part of Opus Dei for 4 decades. That was a part of the thread, and I was just interested how to read. But this is what really just spoke to me, and I didn't actually know about divinity schools, but it triggered this thought because I'm going back to the late 15th century when Erasmus, who is known as the Prince of Rosicrucianism or Humanism, well, the two of the same thing, right? Which is the German version of Hermeticism and all of this mysticism that's come out, or that hasn't come out but been celebrated, let's say, in the Renaissance and Enlightenment era. That was really fostered and fermented in intellectual hubs of universities in Germany in the late 15th century, especially the University of Leipzig. And that was before Frederick the Wise of Saxony, who created the asset, Martin Luther, before he founded the University of Wittenberg, which was what created Martin Luther. There was a monastery There's a monastery attached to Leipzig, I think. There's a monastery attached to Heidelberg. I don't know. But there's a monastery attached to Wittenberg, the university, and that was where, in the duration of 3 years, that all of a sudden Martin Luther became a priest, and then he became a teacher and philosopher of this humanism, and then decided to preach about really the empire removing itself from the Vatican, Catholicism, and the Pope, the dual system. So I think it was 1503 that University of Wittenberg was created, and it was meant to rival that of the University of Leipzig, this intellectual hub of Erasmus, Reuchlin, every humanist thinker. There was Agrippa, humanist German thinker and writer and transcriber of Plato's works and Neoplatonism. And the Emperor Maximilian I was definitely, completely supportive around. At the same time, was funding the city of Leipzig to become. He helped fund or open up a trade convention, I think, which really made Leipzig commercially viable. But it was all part of the Enlightenment. It's all part of this intellectual hub, this openness of science and experimentation. Think Catherine the Great, think hot air balloons, all of this kind of these bright ideas, this new world of wonder. Maximilian funded via Leipzig. Leipzig was really the hub of Germany for what will then be humanism, and was then humanism, and what will be Rosicrucianism, which is everything is the imperial faith that ties the divinity of the empire and the monarchy to these chivalric orders like Freemasonry and so forth. So this is the post, and I'm just going to go off what I've written. So divinity schools, aka elitist societies of humanist intellectualism, to condition future imperial puppets for chivalric orders, creating a scouting system, talent pipelines for intel, labs for military and tech innovation, testing grounds for psychops like MK Ultra and Tavistock, etc. And you see that everywhere now. You see that in the West everywhere. And that's how Jacinda Ardern was created. That's how Macron was created. Through young global leaders, through the WEF. That's another institution, which isn't particularly a secret society, but now there's think tanks as well as societies. It's not so secret. It's become institutionalized and become more of a socio-cultural kind of thing rather than just simply secret societies and orders. It's become completely a cultural norm, especially for youth. It's a scouting system. So we'll go down. A Holy Roman Empire education system influenced by Leipzig, Heidelberg, and Wittenberg's hubs of intellectual humanist thought back in Erasmus days, monastery attachment connecting to Reuchlin and Erasmus, and Holy Roman Empire houses like Frederick the Wise of Saxony with assets like Martin Luther. The 30-Year War that happened, the 30-Year War that happened with the crowning of Frederick, was it Frederick V crowned as King of Bohemia when he married Elizabeth. Elizabeth Stuart, Henry's daughter, now that I need to establish that clearly, rather than Queen Elizabeth, which was around the same time. That 30-Year War was the reason as to why these societies became secret and expanded across the seas from Germany. But what happened was then they were integrated into universities, which really started with the Peace Treaty of Westphalia, which is the end of the 30-Year War. So they had all this time to be created and originate and really gain traction, like in Britain and so forth, like Freemasonry had started then. And then what happened was with the Peace Treaty, the Landsmannschaften, which were these student associations within universities, they were already there, they already existed, were then used to integrate these initiations and these Masonic and chivalric traditions and orders. And then with the use of student Tenorden, which is the student societies, began to integrate elements from these chivalric and Masonic traditions, as I just said. When the war ended, student societies modelled after chivalric and Masonic traditions were pioneered by Leipzig and Jena. Leipzig was again was the university, the main intellectual hub of humanism, with Erasmus and Reuchlin. So there's this connecting hub. This is the main hub of humanism, and what has then become Rosicrucianism, and Protestantism through Luther. So all of that new religion, all that new faith, those new ideas, creating, implementing science with faith and religion, becoming more of a universal intellectual thought and development. This whole culture permeated through the University of Leipzig and still did through the 30-Year War and the treaty, and they definitely under the empire were instructed to model this new framework of these military imperial orders through initiation. It became a new scouting system. They wanted to create a system. They wanted to systemize what will be the restructure of the Holy Roman Empire through these chivalric orders and this divine faith. The intertwining of chivalric, imperial, and Masonic traditions with the German university system was influenced by the evolving social and political restructure of the Holy Roman Empire, of Enlightenment ideals, aka the new imperial faith Rosicrucianism, that bound these orders to divinity. They bound these orders to divinity, to divine rule of the empire and monarchy, or monarchies. German Student Union in Berlin, at the Berlin, I think the convention? Oh, whatever. World War II internationalized the Holy Roman Empire's soft power rule over to the West, bringing over its imperial systems theory and humanist society, integrated education system. Yale transitioned from congregationalist, a congregationalist institution to an ecumenical. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly. I apologize if I haven't, but ecumenical or seminary like Leipzig, aligning with Rosicrucianism, Protestantism, because Protestantism is humanism, is Rosicrucianism, is Hermeticism, hidden, because it blends all faiths. It blends Christianity with mysticism. And that's that. So I think I just wanted to get that out there, that it actually, I wanted to see if it connected with our current research, which it does. It shows that the Holy Roman Empire that we're discussing from the late 15th century is the very same system that is empowered today, is still relevant, is still functioning. It's possible, and I'm sure it's happening and occurring, that this new restructure, the new world order that's happening with Global Agenda 2030, is going to be a completely new restructure. I'm sure it still may involve the United Nations as the international government. That was the reason why it was set up after World War II, as the international government of the empire. But I'm sure there are facets like the Commonwealth and so forth that will be eradicated for a new structure of imperial systematic rule, and possibly with the exposure of Freemasonry and Illuminati and all of these. Look, you can't tell me that all of this hand signage and everyone talking about it, all these accounts online talking about Freemasonry, is natural. Okay, so because if it was natural, it wouldn't be allowed, and it would have been highly censored and cancelled, just like myself. So there's a reason why it's being discussed and openly discussed. Either they're flaunting it and they're exposing it as the imperial order for transparency, or they're restructuring and it's going to be become obsolete, or it's going to be a new institution or a new think tank. They've institutionalized this scouting system and imperial rule through think tanks, through other concepts, through other ways, other means. They don't necessarily need secret societies anymore, especially if they're going to centralize control and be out in the open, standardize our countries, standardize our faiths, our cultures, become completely humanist and hermetic, and they're going to completely control us. They don't necessarily need to be secret or covert anymore, even if the British monarchy is, and they're going to become global statesmen instead. It's just a restructure. It's just a new way of doing things. But nothing really changes. The whole concept and the notion of this imperial rule does not change. They're just going to update and upgrade the system, just like we upgrade a software program. Thanks, guys.